Okay, let's move on. 8:55 this morning. This is exciting. Last night, the very first episode of the Hurling pod dropped. Former Galway goalkeeper James Skehill and Kilkenny's 4-time All-Ireland winning cornerback Paul Murphy will be joining Will O'Callaghan every week to talk hurling. The lads weren't holding back in their first episode, putting a left field choice top of hurling's power rankings.
I've taken a completely different approach. I'm just going present time right now, what I see in front of me since the start of the league, right? And my rankings, I have...
Galway first.
No, I have Wexford first. Right? And we can debate that, I think... right? We can debate that. I have to be kind of sort of tactical here as well. I have Wexford first, a good steam build up, right? I have Cork second. I have Tipperary third, Galway fourth, Waterford fifth. So that's what it's much in the line of the minute, right? That's present tense. Now I come back to you next week, that could all change again. You know what I mean? So I understand the rankings. You can be kind of sidetracked with how impressive Limerick were last year in the championship. Of course you are. New year, let's just go fresh. So I'm thinking, and give merits to the people and the teams for the results they produce in today. You know. So Paul, go on, rip it there, Paul. What are you going to do?
I suppose you can look at it and approach it from different angles. I suppose I'm trying to find somewhere in the middle. Like, we're talking power rankings. We're talking who's most likely the most powerful teams that are going to have an influence on the year as a whole. You have to take last year into consideration. Again, we're looking at this year. Like, for me, Limerick stay on top. Like, again, if you want to go on form, yeah, grand. But that's what the league table is there for, to tell you who's on form. If we're talking overall, who I think is in control of this year, I would be saying Limerick at the moment. I think Waterford, myself, at the moment, are most likely. I mean, Cork didn't lay a hand on them in the All-Ireland final. I suppose it'd be easy to go with Cork, but who gave them the hardest game? You have to go with Waterford. And again, Waterford hurling without the Ballygunner lads are putting in savage performances. You know, Ballygunner lads come back in absolutely flying form. I think it will only bolster them. This thing is tricky enough then, so like that'd be 1 and 2 for me. I think for the next three, it is quite tricky then. I suppose Cork people won't like me that I'm sliding them right down, but I'd actually go a Galway, Wexford 3 and 4 again, just because of the results they've had, and that is more so on the moment of what we're seeing at the moment. But based on, okay, Galway had a bad year last year, and some people might criticise me that I have Limerick on top, but Galway had a bad year last year. But again, just what I'm seeing with Galway, with the St. Thomas's lads as well, who would, you know, a last gasp goal against TJ, otherwise they would have been in an All-Ireland final, you know. Likes of Fintan Burke coming back and just hurling absolutely remarkably. From what I'm seeing from Galway and the big scores, I'm putting Galway 3. I'll be putting Wexford in 4, in fairness to them. Like, 2 big results there. Again, like we said, they look even like rejuvenated. They didn't look like they were out on their feet last year, but they look rejuvenated again under Darragh Egan. And then look, I think after that, I might just not that I'll let Cork slip into 5th, but look, again, they had one match against Clare where, in fairness, they racked up a huge score, a bit of a dead rubber against Offaly that you couldn't tell a whole lot from. So I suppose for me anyway, once you get down to 5th, 6th, 7th, it kind of gets a little bit blurred there. But look, like I said, I think it's Limerick, Waterford, Galway, Wexford at the moment for me.
All right, Will Callan is with us. Will, that's exciting. Congratulations.
Great. It won't be midweek for most weeks. We just wanted to get a kind of a taking stock of the league so far and look at the first couple of round of fixtures, get that out midweek this week. It's going to be Monday evenings for the audio pod and then kind of Tuesday lunchtime for the video pod, which means that you'll have a chance to listen to the hurling on Monday before the football pod comes around on Tuesday.
Look,
so
you got to get in there first.
Rivalry,
there you
but
go.
It means you got a chance to get your hurling analysis first.
There you go. They've set the bar pretty high, but you guys are going to clear it, no problems. Come here. So I like James Skehill's. That's the power rankings today. If we're playing an All-Ireland final today, that's my power rankings. I like that, as opposed to Owen with his made-up criteria, where 1 week it's one thing and another week it's like, I'm going back to 1984 when I remember Mikey Sheehy's fisted goal against Tyrone, and that was 85, was it? Whatever.
I don't know. I wouldn't trust you to get anything correct anyway, because I mean, people who watch this show every day know that you talk an absolute load of nonsense, and know that you would have come at me this week over overreacting to Donegal's bad results, their most recent results, their current form,
the game you're at,
overreacting to literally last weekend.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that.
Well, I was saying what? What's your argument? Come on.
Well, who are you? You've had the Dubs number 1 for like forever until they lost.
Until now, which is current form. Yeah, they were number 1 when they were good at that current time.
Well, who are your rankings? What are your official rankings?
Well, look, you heard Skehill say there, before we give him too much credit on going with an absolute hot take on what's happened on the first 2 weeks, that he was tactically picking. Like, his number 1 pick, Wexford, who are they playing this weekend? they go to play Galway. He's putting all the pressure onto Wexford after 2 good results before they go to Salt Hill. So he can turn around next week. I've no doubt if Galway win on Sunday, where Skell can go, well, Galway have just beaten the number 1 ranked team, so Galway have to go to the very top. So Galway were a jumper. I'll work my way through the from 24 down.
Did you have Galway 12th? Was that where they started?
No. They started off in 9th pre-season.
9th.
And yeah, spoilers, they're going up a bit now at this stage. I did enjoy, though, Ger, that 2 people tweeted me pretty much on the full-time whistle between Limerick and Galway at the Gaelic grounds last Saturday week. That just goes to show what matters. It's not your team beating Limerick on the day. It's a chance to stick it to the person who put your team down in the power rankings at the start.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
They're going up the table. We'll get to that in a second. So here we go from 24. So Sligo have had a pretty disappointing start in Division 2B. They've lost their first 2 games, so they're down to 24th. London are a new entry, but they get green on the rankings because they've got a win against Mayo last time out. They've got a win and a draw so far. Mayo just above them in 22nd place. They've got just 1 point from their first 2 games, but I still think that they're a little bit better than London, even though they lost that fixture just before the break came around. Donegal, who are currently joint top in Division 2A or Division 2B, have started the season really well. 2 wins from 2, and they have to, as a result of that, bump up to 21st place and 23rd. Wicklow have had just a win and a draw so far this season, but I'm keeping them in 20th position, which brings us around to 19th then, which is Kildare, who are going to be boosted by their NACE players coming back in after their All-Ireland Club Intermediate success, so they should improve, but they've lost their first 2 matches in a Division 2A that looks incredibly difficult to call after the results last week. More about that none when we talk about Carlow. Meath beat Kildare on the opening weekend. They've got a huge game this coming Sunday in Trim against their neighbours Westmeath, where they could derail Westmeath's chances of going back up to Division 1, but Meath stay in 18th position. Then I'm looking at Down and Carlow are going to swap places here. Carlow got a huge victory last time out. They had a poor start against Down, but they beat Westmeath, which has blown the second flight wide open. It's very difficult to see who's going to come out of Division 2A after that victory for Carlow, and they've given themselves a chance now to finish in the top 2. We then get into the top 14 here. I'm unchanged for the next 3 entries. Kerry, who lost to Westmeath in the first round but bounced back with a victory last time out, stay in 14th. Offaly have lost their first 2 games since going up to Division 1A and were very heavily beaten by Cork. The game was over after 15 minutes when they conceded 3 goals last time out, but they stayed just above the 2A teams in 13th place. Westmeath, disappointing result against Carlow, but they're in 12th position. The team on the slide in 11th are Laois, and that's because of the nature of the defeats that have taken place, particularly in the last round of games. So Laois conceded 7 goals against Waterford, and if you're conceding over 50 scores within a game, albeit against a Waterford team who can open up against most teams, really disappointing for Cheddar Plunkett's side from a defensive point of view. And we'll see how they get on against the Kilkenny team, who could be welcoming back the 2 last young hurlers of the year for the game at Nolan Park this weekend. Antrim were beaten by Dublin in Corrigan Park, but again have shown that's going to be an incredibly difficult place to go. They got 2 wins there last year, ran teams close in the other games that they didn't win in Corrigan Park over the last few years. And you go to Belfast, you're going to get a game. Dublin came out with the victory, but Antrim ran them all the way. So given the way that Antrim played against Kilkenny and played against Dublin, I've bumped them up ahead of Laois into 10th position. The fallers then, in 9th place, you've got Clare falling down after 2 defeats, lost out to Wexford. Clare supporters will point out to me they've lost to Wexford in the league a few times recently and then beat them in Championship. So maybe they'll feel if they meet later this year, they'll be in a better place. We spoke about Colm Galvin's retirement. Tony Kelly, the good news, there were pictures of him taking part in the warm-up ahead of that Wexford game, so it can't be too long before their key player comes back in. But for now, Clare dropped down to 9th place, and that's largely due to the bump we're going to see from Galway in a moment. I put Kilkenny into 8th. There's not a huge amount between this middle bracket, as we've discussed a few times. Kilkenny lost out in a game that was level, I think, on 8 different occasions against the rivals Tipperary last time out. TJ Reid is on his honeymoon, so he's not going to be back for a few weeks. They're going to have to deal without him probably until the next break. But they will be getting Adrian Mullen and Owen Cody coming back into their team, which should boost them. And they've got a fixture this weekend, which they should win against Laois. But for now, Kilkenny are in 8th place. Couldn't drop Wexford after winning 2 games in a row. Impressive start, having beaten Limerick, backing that up by going to Ennis just before the break and beating Clare. We keep Dublin in 6th position. Again, they had their draw against Waterford in week 1, edged out the game against Antrim last time out. Tipperary have won their first 2 games, maybe not all that impressively. We spoke about it in the hurling pod. They're definitely moving towards a more possession-based hurling game than probably what they played in 2019. Still, they have to work out 2 big absences with the Mars retirements over the off-season, but Tipperary getting the job done last time out against Kilkenny. The big movers, Galway, no great surprise here. I think after the game against Limerick, lads, they showed that they are a team who have got everything that can actually beat Limerick this summer.
Yeah,
Again, they've shown that they're a bad matchup for Limerick.
Where were they last week?
So they were in, I think, 8th position last week. So they've jumped up 4 places. And I think totally.
Why are Cork second here? Cork got annihilated in the All-Ireland final last year. Have shown nothing since, really, because they haven't had the opportunity to, but they got annihilated. They're not the second best team in the country. Galway are now...
You're going to find out exactly where Cork are this weekend, Ger, when they go and play Limerick in a repeat of the All-Ireland final. And I agree with you. And Paul Murphy said it within the clip that we played a few minutes ago as well. Cork didn't lay a glove on Limerick last year in the meetings between the two sides. Cork are possibly have got an argument for saying that they're the best of the rest based on what they've done over the last year and a bit. But until they actually go out and do what Wexford or Galway have done to Limerick, they could well be on the slide, I think, when we do the hurling rankings next week. So this is a big test for them this weekend.
I think they've been grandfathered in on reputation rather than anything else.
Possibly, but look, you can't take away from their first 2 fixtures either. Like, they ran up a huge scoreline against Clare at Porky Queeve in the first game, and I kind of almost write off the Offaly result given that they opened up in that fixture. But again, they won their 2 games, and so as a result, I wasn't going to drop them because of that. I think this is a good.
That's why these power rankings are hard. You've got to drop teams who are winning sometimes.
Yeah, you do. And look, some teams who won have gone down a place or who've sat stagnant despite the fact that they picked up 2 victories. But I wasn't going to put Galway directly into number 2, which was, look, it was a temptation after the game against Limerick because they hurled so well, particularly in that final quarter. You can't but be impressed with going into the home of the All-Ireland champions, even if you take the different caveats that are there. Garrod Hegarty being sent off, the fact that Keane Lynch wasn't available for Limerick, that Limerick appear to have started a little bit slowly in their first 2 games. And at the same time, give Galway all the credit. And this is why I really hope that they meet this summer in the championship. It's not nailed on because of the way the provincial system is set up this year, but I would love to see an All-Ireland semi-final or final between Galway and Limerick, see them go toe-to-toe, and let's see how this Galway team develops as the year goes on.
Okay. I do also buy Paul Murphy's point about Waterford putting it up to Limerick more than anybody else last year, although that first half Tipperary. So I do think that Cork are behind Tip and Cork are behind Waterford and Cork are behind Galway. So I would have Cork 5th at this stage, at best.
Well, they could well be 5th next week if they take a hammering against Limerick this weekend. But we'll see. Again, that's the real litmus test about where they are. I think Waterford, lads, they're going to benefit massively from the Ballygunner players that come back in on the back of a first ever All-Ireland club success for a Waterford team. It's going to add a little bit of extra firepower to them as well. And I would agree. I think there's a very good chance that Waterford are going to be towards the top of these power rankings when we discuss them next week. I didn't take the temptation that Skell had to just bump Limerick right down. I think Limerick will have no concern after not winning their first 3 games last year.
No, they won't. But at the same time, it's a snapshot of where we are right now. Isn't that right, Owen?
Absolutely. The current is all that matters.
Well, good stuff. Congratulations on the Hurling Pod. And it'll drop next Monday evening, so make sure you are subscribed to the OTB GAA feed for that. You can also subscribe to the Hurling Pod feed itself to make sure that you don't miss it, and turn on automatic downloads, and it'll all be seamless for you. It is 8 minutes past 9.